Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our town council meeting this evening. We will call this meeting to order. And Kat Perry.
Here.
David Harwood.
Here.
Melissa Pickett.
Here.
Doug Mattson. Here. And Pete Green. Here. Very good. All are in attendance. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? And I'm looking for some assistance here. Jackson, Callahan, Marin. Thank you. Very good. And Jillian. My wife does the same thing to me, okay? All right. If you would, face the flags. There you go. Ready? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job.
Give me 5. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, I couldn't get to my gavel quick enough, council. Yep. All righty. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from April 8th, 2025?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any changes to the minutes, council? Nope. Okay, Kat?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Pete? Okay, the minutes are approved. Do I have a motion to approve the regular agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any changes? Nope. Okay, Kat?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Doug? Aye. Pete?
Aye.
Okay, regular agenda is adopted. Consent agenda, financial audit contract, tax release 2024-07, budget amendment 2024-12, business property RZ 2025-01-R15, 2HSG, which will be a public hearing held in our June meeting. Proclamation mental health, amended project ordinance 2025-03 Memorial Park improvement projects. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Make a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, of course, there's normally no discussion for consent, so we will vote. Kat?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Doug? Aye. Pete?
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda is adopted. Now, let's see here. Hillary, thank you. I should have had Marin bring that up. Okay. Sandy Hogan. Hey, Sandy. As always, just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sandy Hogan, and I live at 1041 Green Hill Road. I would like to know if there's any progress been made on the parking issue that we have for the town. I love coming to town and buying locally when I can, but I just like a lot of other people, you have to time it so you can avoid, the weekends, and it's Mondays through Thursdays. So it's still hard to find us a parking spot. And it seems like it's been kind of laying by the side that you don't hear it discussed a lot with some of the other issues. And I know there've been some suggestions that have been made around the town for ways to solve this. And so since we're here at budget time again, property taxes provide about, I think I looked it up, 46% of the overall the general fund budget. And I know that property owners are always concerned about taxes going up and how that goes, but there's also concerns about the things that would make it easier to go to town and park and support our merchants. And so there's been a suggestion around by some people and talking to people who know the budget, know the finance side of bonds, and who have lived in towns or have been party to towns that have managed to add to the top line of the town's revenue by doing revenue bonds, not a GO bond of any kind, to finance a garage for the town, parking garage. And I know a couple of times, and I know Shane, you're very aware of this with everything, some of the discussions that have gone on. But from what I understand, it is a very good way to raise the funds for the garage without having to vote on it for the town. And it has a revenue source behind it, which is all the parking fees. And other towns that I have talked with or been part of have done this, and some of them have even called it a cash cow for the town. To do this where it's not a burden on the town to do, and it provides more parking. It just seems like it's a good solution all the way around to do this. And one of the local, a couple of them, I noticed the other day we parked, and if I divided this up from the length of time that we were there, they were charging about $5 an hour. And there was a little projection that was done by some people in town that they just used $2.50. And it came out to about $1 million a year top line for the town. And I would like to just ask that get looked at, investigated to see if that's something that we can do for the town. It adds revenue, it provides parking, and I know you've got budget time going on at this time, and it's probably not the right time to do it now, but I would just hope that you could put that on the list somewhere and just look at it and see if it's something that the town can get done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hogan. There will be a discussion this evening, if you look at the agenda, on parking enforcement update. That will essentially be, if the council so chooses, kind of a phase one. So
Right.
I hope you will stay and
I will.
how that goes.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So that's it. Okay. Regular agenda, chamber update. Do we have Robin Miller here? Robin, come on up. Robin, if you would, just state your name and address for the record.
Oh, this is great. Robin Miller, my home address, 130 Rockview Drive, Blowing Rock. 28605. How exciting is that? been waiting to do it. I even have the driver's license now. Thank you. Thank you, Town Council. Thank you, Shane, for having the chamber today to give you a brief as I can be, update. Because I think it's been a little while, and I've been here a little over 90 days on the job. So first and foremost, I'd like to introduce some people here in the audience. We have our staff. If you'd please stand, we have Kristen and Brooke and Courtney. Kristen is our office administrator, Welcome Center. Brooke, who is also her birthday today, does our events, and Courtney, communications and membership. Thank you. And then also in the audience, we do have several board members. If you don't mind, board members, please stand. Stephen, thank you. Hi, Wayne, didn't see you come in. Tammy, hi. Thank you. So, and thank you for the support and all you do. Volunteers are the lifeblood of the organization. So going forward, I've been asked this a number of times. Who are you, Robin? Some of you had the ability to read my resume. Some of you Googled it. Some of you did not. So really quick, those are some of my credentials. I hate talking about myself, quite frankly, but I do think it's important being the new kid in Blowing Rock. I have nearly 20 years experience running a very large chamber of commerce on the Gulf Coast of Pinellas County, Florida. I've been testified before Senate, Congress, award-winning chamber, all of that. But most importantly, I have a passion for community and a passion for community service. I didn't need this job, I wanted it. And I'm here to truly serve this community in the Chamber of Commerce. And last but not least, I am a fitness enthusiast, so if you do see me around town in some sneakers running around, that's because I probably have come from the gym, either in the morning or in the evening. So thank you. Do I advance this myself?
You got it.
Oh, I'm doing it? That'd be awesome if you would. Do you mind? Okay. I don't like asking people to do things for me either, so. All right, so it was why Blowing Rock? And I do get that probably more than who are you? You know, I had been looking around for probably about a year and a half, and it came across my desk through a national chamber search e-newsletter. And I looked at the town and I said, what a charming place. You can't move somewhere, Robin, just based on the internet picture and the charm itself. So I did do some research. Fortunately, the chairman of my board that I left is a frequent tourist here in Blowing Rock. He comes 2 to 3 times a year. I did confide in him that I was looking at it, and he spoke very highly of this community, that it was warm, welcoming, and just an amazing place to visit, and that he had hoped to eventually migrate his family to this area. So that's the why. And then I was asked, well, then the how. What are you going to do? What are we going to do at the chamber together here in Blowing Rock? So when I presented a plan to the search committee, was tasked with 90-day plan. And I laid that out as the organization, the people, and of course the community, because the chamber is part of the nucleus as the town council and the town is of the community. So when I talk about the organization itself, what have we been doing together as a board, as staff, volunteers? We have been looking at the operations as a whole. Look, you've got a great chamber here, and you all know it, and we love Charles and everything. I'm immensely in gratitude with Charles. But I wouldn't be serving this organization, right, if I didn't lift the hood up and do that tune-up, right? Just like taking your car into the car shop. So I've been just looking at finances, at ways we can enhance things in the operation of the chamber. You wouldn't know walking down Park Avenue what was going on inside those walls, quite frankly. But just trying to update from an operational standpoint and processes, and definitely in technology, and investing a little bit more on the technology side so that we can automate what we're doing from day to day. The people are what make us whole. People are what we are, right? I wouldn't have a job, the staff and the board wouldn't have their positions if we weren't serving the people. So I've been out meeting as best I can, and I do them in 30-minute quick meetings. Those of you that have done this with me know, and I do try to time it, and it's not lunch or coffee, but members, board members, staff, key leaders, Pete, I get to see you tomorrow at 11 a.m., and the volunteers here in the community. So just a listening tour. And then the community, getting out and interacting with the businesses, looking at the programs that the chamber currently offers, looking to enhance those offerings, and then your great events, right? Symphony, Art in the Park, and Winterfest. And then looking and really listening and reading, and thank you, Shane, for the great updates on economic development and sitting in on, the Watauga Economic Development Council and really grasping what this community and the business community wants and is striving to be. So having said that, my last slide, and that's the quote that I truly feel embraces kind of where the journey has been for myself as your chamber leader, and what I'm asking for all of us together to move forward in a positive direction. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. All righty, and welcome on board to the new chamber people, the old chamber people. Thank you for all your hard work. Okay, regular agenda, section 2, parking enforcement update. Chief Nathan Kurt. Did I pronounce that properly?
Good evening, everyone. Got a couple of handouts here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right, just a quick update on what we're working on with parking and everything. Some of the things, Shane's got it up here on the board. Just a quick overview of bullet points from what Ms. McLaurin went over with us at the winter retreat. She presented a couple of different things, just some things to help with parking, some solutions. So some of the recommendations that she made was removing the 3-hour parking and putting it down to 2-hour parking on our main street and Sunset Drive. And then also she recommended that Maple Street be moved to a monitored parking instead of how it is set up right now, to where you can go park there all day. A couple other things, Wallingford and Jenny Stevens parking decks remain to be set up currently how we have it on the books right now, to where you can go and park there if it's longer than 3 hours. It's not monitored, can go in and out. Something else is that she was wanting us to encourage employees from Main Street and any type of employees for any of the businesses on Main Street to park there in the decks. Also, something else that we need to talk about is signage for the whole town, really. And I'll get into that further. But this is also going to, what she recommended was do enforcement year round. So usually we've been doing seasonal parking enforcement. It starts, mid-May, around Mother's Day this past weekend, all the way through leaf season up to about, Thanksgiving is typically what we've been looking at. So that's when we've focused on our enforcement from the past. She also recommended removing parking enforcement from the PD, which I'm behind and I support that. So I'd like to introduce Cassandra Reed. She is our telecommunicator supervisor for the PD. Not a sworn officer, she supervises the communications center over there. And she's been more than happy and been hand in hand with me while we've been working through these parking solutions. She also recommended some software options, which is Passport Parking. They lead the business. They corner the market when it comes to any type of parking solution, any type of handheld device, anything like that, software. They have it all, and we've had multiple meetings with them. She also recommended not having any apps to pay for parking, any type of thing like that. She didn't want the kiosks or meters or anything, and we didn't want the meters when we first talked about this 3, 4, 10 years ago. So she also recommended increasing the parking fines. So she recommended the first offense to be $20, second offense $30, and then 30 days unpaid. 60 plus days, it goes up to 60 for any type of third offense immobilization. So we've had several meetings, myself and Cassandra, with Passport. They've been fantastic to work with. And now we're kind of at a point to where we have to talk to you guys, because Passport is expensive when it comes down to it. Cassandra has the newest numbers from our last meeting that we had. We've tried to work them down a little bit just based off of our volume of tickets that we have. I think last year was our highest amount of parking citations that we issued, and I believe it was around 450. Is what we want? 450. So Passport, what we've talked with them is no kiosks, no meters. They can design the ticket or citation to have the offenses on there the way we want it. You can have a QR code, so when it prints off, they scan it with their phone and then they can pay for it with a card. They handle all the finances. I've had Tasha in the meetings, and I've also had Thomas for IT to see if we had any type of hiccups that could come up with that. It seems like it's going to be pretty seamless. Now, where we're at currently is we have posted for 2 part-time parking enforcement or parking ambassadors, like they say it in the business. So it would be more than just a parking enforcement officer. It'd be somebody that could give you information about the town, where to park at, where to encourage you to go eat at, where you can spend your time at while you're in town. When I typed this up, which was a couple of days ago, we had 14 applications. I believe we're up closer to 20 now. So there has been a lot of, interest in the position. And like I said, Cassandra will be leading it up from there. Now, if we go to the next slide here. So I just wanted to highlight what's in our current code, because this was amended back in August of 2023. So our signage right now says 8 to 7 for monitored parking, but we changed it, and technically now Monday through Saturday, it's 9 to 5, and Sundays 1 to 5. We have never enforced any parking on Sundays. We have been enforcing what is on the signs currently right now. So also on that, we did update some of the offenses on here, and this reflects differently than what we have in our current citation books for the PD when we were still doing the parking tickets and everything. But if we want to look at those offenses, if you want to scroll down, Jane. So this is what we have right now in town code. This is not what we've been enforcing. I mean, there's some things on here that we've been given 50% discounts on based off of what we have on the books, because that's what's on our old parking citation books. So Passport, we can upload this information and they can design and tailor it exactly how we want it. That's citation fees, anything like that. So we're kind of at a standstill now until I hear back from you guys what y'all want to do, because Cassandra has the updated numbers. I think it was going to be $1,000 a month.
Yeah, they reduced it to $1,000 a month for the service, and then they charge a percentage for delinquent letters that they would go out.
Yeah, and we've never sent out delinquent letters or anything like that in the past. So they would take a collection of that if it's paid 30 days plus. And we've-
$1,000 a month plus a percentage.
Yes, it's $1,000 a month. That's flat. That's the software fees and handling all the finances, to where it's set up to where Tasha is just getting a check from Passport, essentially, from people paying their citations. So this is where we're at. If we want to increase this, the fees that we have right here, we need to figure out what we're going to increase it to. And if we want to go ahead with Passport, we need to figure that out, because that's a substantial amount of money. So.
Council, I have a question. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, Nathan, it would help me if I could see a list of everything that Passport would do for us.
Yeah.
Like a bullet list or the benefits that we're gonna see.
Absolutely.
I have two questions.
What you got, Charlie?
One, is it in the budget for this year?
It is not currently in the budget. We do have monies left in the current year in which we're in, we have not spent, that could potentially pay for the remainder of the year. But until we make a decision, we've not formally entered anything into the budget.
Okay. Second question is, Passport, do they provide the signage? So we have to provide the signage.
They didn't mention anything about it.
Yeah, they didn't mention anything about signage. That'd be something that would be a cost incurred upon us.
I would estimate signage would be under $1,000 for the signs. They're relatively inexpensive a piece, yeah, especially when you're doing duplicates. So we could ballpark $1,000 or less for new signage to be placed along Main Street, Sunset Park, et cetera.
And just to one second, Pete, and just to build on what you were talking about there, Charlie, upfront cost that we would be looking at for the town would be $2,600, and that's for the handheld printers, paper, and things like that to get them running, and then it's a monthly incurrence after that for the software fees. Go ahead, Pete.
Nathan, we know from Department of Transportation that when they get around to paving Main Street and the whole cycle of roads there, that we're going to lose anywhere from 12 to 15 parking places on Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
How have you been able to notify businesses or the general public about when that's coming? Or, well, it'll come when they pay, but.
Yeah, so, I mean, we have a rough timeline of when they're gonna go. I know they have to have it completed by Labor Day, isn't that correct, Shane? So, and they're gonna be paving at night, so we're gonna try to get out there. We'll put it on social media as much as we can, and there'll be, the town, the PD, put it in the newsletter and just try to keep them abreast of all the new information coming in.
Thank you.
Two things. I thought we put in the budget for the two handhelds.
We did not last year. We did not.
Okay, we just talked about it and didn't.
Correct.
So I remember Nathan, the chief, giving us a price on that. And also, I think, did we not talk about at the retreat about going ahead and marking those spaces off when we line the parking, because it may be a while before the state pays?
We did. We've been waiting on a few warmer days without rain to do that. So as soon as we get a few days, we'll get those marked as well. We did not include the handhelds due to the fact that we decided not to move forward with the software.
Right.
So one without the other would not have worked. So we decided not to put it in the budget last year due to the fact that we didn't move forward with the software.
Does Passport handle paid parking operations?
Yes, so this is just the initial,
This will be phase one.
this is phase one, yeah. And then if we wanted to roll out a paid parking system, we could do that much easier because we've already got the groundwork laid.
Okay. So what is your question for council? What would you like to hear from council?
I guess what I'm looking for is if we want to move forward with Passport and what we have going with them. So the cost of $1,000 a month for the software, and if we're good with the 30%, I think is what we've got them to now. And that's lowering the monthly software fee to $1,000. It was $1,250. So if we're good with incurring that cost as a town, we're ready to start interviews with everybody. And I guess if we want to do this, this allows people to pay with cards, these citation fees and things like that. So that would be a big help, I know, for not only the PD, but I'm sure for finance as well. Because I think the only other option that we have here is I've got to get new citation books if we're going to keep with the old way and have it tailored to what the new fees are showing in the town code book.
I do have a question, council. Do we have any projected revenue on this?
I would add to the ask also, so there's a couple different points here. I'm not sure that any action necessarily has to be taken tonight. Our first step would be, if we're making changes to the parking ordinance, would be come back at the June 10th meeting to hold a public hearing to discuss the changes to the parking ordinance. So the recommendations that were put forth during the retreat that Chief Kirk re-mentioned tonight would be part of those considerations to be discussed formally at the June 10th meeting. So you would need to make one action to set a public hearing for June 10th for us to move forward with potential changes to the ordinance. We could move forward currently with the hiring of the part-time officers and enforcement based on the August the 8th, 2023 information that's here behind us. I would ask to hold off on new signage and et cetera until we knew what was going to take place at the June 10th meeting.
So essentially what you're requesting of council, if council would like to move forward, we need to make a motion to where they approve the hiring of the individuals, 1. 2, the contracting of Passport. They can do that tonight,
We can.
okay? And then as far as changes to the ordinance, that does require a public hearing,
It does.
which can be heard in June, July, whatever.
So hold off on our suggestions on any of this until the public hearing, but all right, is the parking enforcement gonna start, Memorial Day?
So that is one ask. We are planning on moving forward now
It usually
with
starts
typical
on
enforcement.
Memorial Day. I'm just asking, is it
Yeah.
gonna start on?
So
And
last
we'll be
year,
enforcing the old law until
Yes.
this.
yes, that's what it is. I mean, last year I tried to start at Mother's Day again because that's when town really starts getting hammered on the weekends. So
You tried to
regardless,
start it on Mother's Day?
yes.
Oh.
So yeah, like you've seen around town, we put the pedestrian signs out everywhere on Main Street and all that. And that's usually the mark of when we start enforcing the parking regulations. So regardless, I have enough in my budget right now. I've got to get somebody hired for parking just to use up the rest of that parking budget.
So essentially, it sounds like they need a motion to approve hiring Passport to assist with this, the current program, and to hire the personnel needed to enforce. Correct? Is that correct?
So the ask with Passport is $2,600 for the equipment,
Yes.
Correct.
$1,000 a month for
Correct.
the software subscription.
That's correct.
And then, can you clarify the 30%? 30% of what?
30% is what they charge if they send out the delinquent letters, for people that don't pay. So if I like 30, if we say 30 days past due, then they'll automatically send out that delinquent, and they'll charge 30% of the cost of that ticket for them sending that letter out.
Okay, so to make the math easier, if it's a $100 ticket, they're gonna charge $30
30%.
for that
Yeah.
one ticket.
Do they charge that when they receive the money?
if they pay it before the delinquent timeframe.
Yeah.
Let's see, what do they get per
That's a good point.
citation?
So are they,
Question is 30 cents paid once the individual pays or taken?
Yeah, I'd like to know if they get their money regardless of whether we get ours.
That's
or
right.
not.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, so the processing, once they pay that, is 2.95% plus 25 cents.
Once it's paid.
Paid, yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So the only thing we get from Passport is after their fees are taken, what's left of the citation. I think that was why
every
Ms.
citation.
McLaurin was,
not just delinquent letters?
correct, they get an extra 30% if they pay it delinquent after 30
That makes
days.
more sense.
Yeah, and that's why Ms. McLaurin was encouraging us to increase the fees, I think.
But did they get that 30% whether it's paid or not?
Well, they won't get anything if it doesn't get paid.
Well, I mean, that's what I was wanting to know. Would they get their part if we don't get ours?
No, there's no cost to them
Yeah.
sending the letters. That's part of the $1,000. They take 30% once it's paid of the delinquent letters.
So
Of
is
the delinquent
that,
amount.
is that net? Are they carrying the credit card charges? Or,
They're passing it on to the consumer.
Yeah.
The
okay,
consumer pays the credit card charges.
okay. Thank you.
And I would add, if there's questions, we do not have to have Passport necessarily approved tonight. We can moving forward with the enforcement piece.
Yeah.
And then Passport can go as a part of the June 10th conversation as well. It does not have, that part does not have to be. We are ready and equipped with the current citation books that we have to start enforcing parking ASAP. We just wanted to bring up the full package tonight. So Passport's does not have to be a part of tonight's conversation if you still have questions or concerns.
Well, I'll make that motion to go ahead and get started with the hiring of the personnel and to, the allotment, do you need also in that, motion, the money for the handhelds or anything, or just personnel?
I have the money in my budget, I could cover that cost.
Okay, so just personnel for now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
So you're making a motion to approve the hiring of the personnel,
yes.
okay? Do we
I
have,
second.
we have a second?
I'll second.
We have 2 seconds, Hillary. Any additional discussion? Okay, Kat?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
I'm sorry, did you have another question, David?
Well, I think we're into voting,
I know, but I just wanted to make
Right,
sure
go
we
ahead.
covered. Okay. Doug?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
All right.
All right,
And
thank you.
then they'll come back June or July. You want them to come, now, that's something else. Do you want to have a public hearing at June or July meeting to address changes to our current ordinance?
I would say yes, but leave the timeline on the chief and Mr. Fox.
Yeah, June 10th is our just given the timing of the season, we would like June 10th to be the date if that's
Yeah.
acceptable by
Okay, so
council.
we'll have a public hearing, June 10th meeting. Okay,
Do we need a motion for that?
we'll make one. Go ahead.
I make a motion that on June 10th, we have a public hearing to discuss contracting with Passport and the changes in the ordinances.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Kat.
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
Okay. Got it?
All right, got it.
Thanks,
Thank y'all.
guys. Appreciate all your hard work. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Good to meet you, Cassandra.
Thank you.
All righty. Moving right along. 25-26 budget presentation. Now, keep in mind, this is strictly a presentation. And there's still some workshop work that'll take place at the end of the month with council. Am I correct?
That is correct.
And the final budget will be presented on June 10th. Correct?
Public hearing, correct?
Public hearing.
That's correct.
Okay. Shane?
All right. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Good evening. Stand here before you to present the 25-26 proposed budget. start by just giving an outline of what we're going to talk about tonight. We'll talk first about our budget objectives as we go into the process, what we're looking at and what we're planning for. Our budget calendar, which is always important to bring up, kind of the timeline of the work and how it takes place throughout the year. And then we'll go into the actual 25-26 budget, general fund budget first, revenues and expenditures, and then looking at capital outlay and general fund debt. And then we'll look at the water and sewer fund, and then finish it up looking at revenues and expenses with capital outlay and debt within the water and sewer fund as well. So start by saying thank you to Ms. Brown, who's sitting here to my right, our finance director, and all of our department heads. The budget comes together through Ms. Brown and our department heads over the course of several months. So thank you, Ms. Brown, for all the hard work, and thank you, department heads, for putting together budgets of each individual department. Our budget objectives stay pretty much the same each year. First of all, we've got to present a balanced budget, which we do, and we have tonight before you as a structurally balanced budget. Our priority-based budget, better way of saying our needs. It's our needs budget. These aren't wants. These are what we have determined as our needs. We would not bring to you things that we would consider wants. These are priority-based needs. Also, looking to always maintain or improve our service levels. That's our operations, public safety, planning, zoning, park and rec, et cetera. And then we always are looking at the future. We want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on the future as we're setting forth either tax rates, water and sewer rates, as we're looking at debt roll-offs. Some of the things we talk about each year, starting at the mid-year retreat, going into the budget and the summer retreat as well. So these are kind of our 4 points in which we look at as we're putting together and trying to prioritize what our budget strategy is. The calendar is forever. So every single day, Ms. Brown is looking at our budget and making sure, along with our department heads, that we're maintaining and staying within the budget that you ultimately set forth in June of each year. So that's a check. Where we have been the last few months is working with our department heads to put together the budget that you'll soon be able to see. And that takes about 3 months, which is a check. Where we have, to the mayor's point earlier, we have 2 things outside of tonight. Our May 27th budget workshop, which will be held in this room from 1 to 5 p.m. That is for public to attend, but not to participate. The public gets a chance to participate at the public hearing, which is scheduled to be held on June the 10th. And that is when we possibly will adopt the budget. It does not have to be adopted that night. However, we are required to adopt the budget prior to the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. Typically, that meeting is the meeting in which we have adopted the budget. I think once in the last 6 years, we chose to adopt it at the summer retreat because of some changes. June is our month, though. All right, getting into the nuts and bolts of the budget. So I start by giving you all of the highlights. That way, if anybody wants to leave, they can leave. So number 1, no proposed property tax increases for this year's budget. However, we are proposing to utilize some fund balance to balance the budget, and we'll get to that in just a few moments. So first key is a big key, no proposed property tax increases as of right now. We are proposing to utilize some fund balance to balance the budget. Diversification is the name. I want to spend a few moments and just a little bit about our revenue structure and how we are different and why we are different. A little bit of hint there, sales tax and TDA is a big part of that. Our salaries are, as of right now, we're proposing a 2.5% COLA for all employees across the board, full-time employees. We have 2 things that are ultimately out of our control. One is a 6% increase in our retirement, which we'll get to in just a few moments and talk about the details of that. It's our state required pension plan, and our second is our health insurance. Last 2 pieces we'll get to lastly, but it's not to be overlooked, is our debt. We talked a lot about our debt at the winter retreat, utilizing our fancy tools to project out a lot of things coming. And I want to go back and hit on some of those points where we are currently in the 24-25 budget, where we're projecting to be in the 25-26 budget. And then all important, always continuation of our capital plan, which is our fleet schedule, which we'll have a few slides on as we kind of go throughout the process of what that looks like. All right, general fund revenues. Here's a pie chart of what our general fund revenues look like. We are unique in the sense that our property taxes make up 45%, and our second biggest revenue and third is a combined 38%, so a very close second. And we'll go into why of that in just a few moments, which is sales tax and TDA. State collected, that's our PAL bill money, our state grant money. Sales and services, our park and recreation fees. Transfers and interest, transfers from one fund to the other. Interest is what we're earning on our investments. Other is a bigger number that's primarily made up of our loan proceeds and miscellaneous income. So in North Carolina, as you take out loans, you have to record both the revenue side and the expense side. So as our loan or our capital fleet, which we'll get to in a few moments, that number increases or changes, that number changes as well. So 7% other. So 45% property taxes, 23% TDA or sales tax, 15 TDA, and then the others make up the remainders. So how this budget is different and why I mentioned earlier about diversification and how diversified our overall revenue portfolio is. You can see over the last 5 years a trend from our property taxes, which were roughly 50% 5 years ago, to today at 44.7%. At the same time, if you combine our sales tax and our TDA revenue, which was once 32.9 and much lower years ago, that now has gone to almost 39%. Why is this important? Well, it's important, one, to make sure that we're diversified as possible. Things like hurricanes, et cetera, right, as we've had in the past, pandemics, we've gone through a lot in the last 5 or 6 years. Being diversified allows us to keep a steady budget, which is what we've tried to present each year. Why have these numbers changed? It's the tourism. We're a tourist town. We rely primarily on tourism as our number one source of our business and economic development. So you can see here with this slide that's before you that that's actually continuing to take place, with property taxes making up a smaller portion of the overall budget. Today, 44.7%, while the TDA and the sales tax continues to rise and is now at 39%. Property taxes. I mentioned earlier that we were not proposing a property tax increase. I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about our property tax base and our growth in our base and what our rate has looked like, and maybe even comparing it to some others, just to give a general sense of where we are and what we've done over the last 5 years. So here's a graph that may be difficult to see, but it shows our overall base growth, including the 2026 base growth. We've grown about 3.5% from last year to this year, which is actually above average. Typically, we're about 2.5%. You'll see the big spike there with the reappraisal that was done in 22 and accounted for in 23. And again, that was the Watauga County appraisal. Just for those that may not be aware, Watauga County and all 100 counties are in charge of the appraisal process. We are not. Our job is to accept what appraisal that the county does for our town limits. And then I propose and you set forth our tax rate. So overall, our property tax base here has seen a pretty steady increase outside of 22 to 23 with the reappraisal, about 2.5% on average each year is what that looks like. But again, back from 22 to 23 was that 35% increase. I point out the 35% increase because we caught this in 22 and made effective in 23. A lot of other counties and areas around West North Carolina and overall across North Carolina have had reevaluations done since then. Here's just an example. So I say this to say we have another reevaluation coming up in 2027. I think there's no doubt between 2022 and the numbers that were put forth as appraisal values in 22, we're expecting some increases in 27. Why would we expect that? Since 2022, these are a listing of some counties just for reference and what their overall increases were. 44% Nash, 50% Caldwell. That was just done this past year. 51% Mecklenburg, Union at 60, Dare at 67, Catawba at 69. Wilkes just concluded theirs, and I think they're between 65 and 70. So the 35% number that we had in 2022 was actually a good number, and those that have been paying property taxes in town have been based on that number. However, we do have another reval coming in 2027 that will be impacted and taken into account 2 budgets from now. So not the one we're proposing, not next year's, but the next one. So we've got a little bit of time there before we make any decisions of what that's going to look like. But again, just wanting to point out our typical growth, what our overall appraisal value was this year, and then what that looks like compared to what we've had in the past. Our property tax rate has been relatively flat. And I say flat as in the year before the reval, we were at 43. The year after the reval, we went to 37. That was that 35% taken into account. The year after, we went to 39. That was to pay for some debt service. And the last 2 years, we've been at 40%. If you go back a number of years, that number has changed drastically. If you go back into the 80s and 90s, that's in the 60s and the 70s. So the last 5 years, I think, is a good snapshot that we've been around 40 cent, so to speak, per $100 worth of value. Again, just for reference sakes, I think it's important to point out what that looks like when comparing to other towns. And I picked towns that are similar to ours in this part of the state that have a full service town. I think that's an important thing that sometimes gets lost. We are a full-service town, which means we have every service that a large city would have, from police and full-time fire to water and sewer plants, public works, streets, administration, park and rec, planning and zoning, everything that you would have if you go to Lenoir or Hickory or Charlotte or any of these other cities. In comparison, our 40 cent puts us right behind Boone at 39 cent. Banner Elk at 46, Hickory at 46, Wilkesboro at 48, North Wilkesboro at 52, Lenoir at 58, and Beach Mountain at 65. These are a snapshot just to give you some ideas of where we are from a tax rate standpoint. These were last year's numbers. We don't have this year's numbers because most everyone's doing what I'm doing tonight and presenting the budget to you. When you add our county, which I think is important because everyone that lives in this town, including myself, when we pay taxes, we pay Watauga County taxes or Caldwell, mostly Watauga, along with our town tax, the 40 cent. When you add those two together, again, Boone's going to be 1 cent behind us because Boone's in Watauga County. So they're at 71 cent combined rate, effective rate, we're at 72. Then you start seeing some pretty drastic jumps there because of either Avery County or Catawba County or Caldwell County or Wilkes County and what that looks like. Good reference here is the city of Lenoir is almost 50 cent, 49 cent per 100, different than what we are. Pretty drastic difference there. Again, no one likes to pay taxes. I'm not standing up here tonight saying that our tax rate needs to be substantially higher. I just want to make sure that I state what our tax rate is, what it has been, and the work that we've done over the last number of years to try to keep that tax rate as steady and as low as we possibly can while providing the services that we do on top of the projects, and also taking into account the number of debt service payments that we make each year. Overall, when you talk about the value of a penny and what a value of a penny is, when we look at this year, our value of a penny is $178,000, which means for every penny on that tax rate, the 40 cent tax rate, it's worth $178,000. So if you were to say tonight, we want to add a penny, that's $178,000 in revenue. Take away a penny, that takes away $178,000. Again, that steady growth, 3.7% growth over the last few years, shows that 165, 172, and 178,000 this year. Questions so far on property taxes? Because I don't want to gloss over the fact that we are just proposing at this point to keep the rate flat, but also giving you a chance to answer or ask any questions that I may be able to answer regarding either our evaluation or where we've been the past number of years. Okay. All right, getting into some other metrics of what we look at when we're potentially trying to project numbers that we don't necessarily have. The beauty of property taxes is that I go to Hillary and Ms. Huebner, our clerk, and I say, do you have the numbers from the county? And she says yes, and she gives them to us, and then we take that number, which is our value, and we take that and we times it times 40, and we put a number into our budget, which you'll have in just a few moments. That's easy. Sales tax, TDA, and some of these other revenues are a little more difficult because we don't necessarily know how our economy is going to go. However, we try to utilize some data. And so on our sales tax, we are projecting from last year's budget a 10% increase. And that sounds like a lot, and it is, but let me tell you why. We are currently operating this year through today, which is May 13th, at more than 10%. So we have already seen what we have considered that increase. We budgeted extremely conservative last year. So when I say up 10%, the 10% last year budget number, where we currently are, versus what we're projecting. Where we actually are is a little bit above that. So we're honestly projecting pretty even with where we actually are, is what I'm trying to say. So again, making sure that we're comparing apples to apples, budget to budget, 10%. Actuals of what we think the next couple months are going to be, which are typically good months for us, versus what we've seen so far, we're pretty much budgeting flat, if that makes sense. And in the TDA, you'll see that same kind of scenario in a few moments. Year to date is up, I said that. Watauga County seems to be trending better than others. We know that we all had a month of October in 24 that was a terrible month for sales tax and TDA and a lot of things. However, we have seen sales tax be extremely strong following the hurricane. We've actually had a number of months, I think December and a couple others this winter, that have been record months, so to speak, for us. But again, just wanting to go back and say, from apples to apples standpoint, we are projecting up. However, for what we're actually going to be collecting, we're projecting that to be flat. All right, getting into the TDA, and I may call on Director Brown to come up here and assist me, and the mayor. As we look at the TDA, and the TDA board met last week and discussed their budget, proposed budget as well. We're looking at our sales tax data being positive, right? So current actual sales tax data is a positive trend. The TDA was on pace in 2024, 2025 for a record year. We lost most of end of September, the last weekend of September, and we lost most of October, which was huge. Biggest month of the year for the TDA, biggest month of the year for all of us, sales tax, et cetera, whatever metric you want to use. However, I think it's fair to say, and I would ask Director Brown if you'd like to correct me, we've seen a leveling over the last number of months. We've had months that are up, months that are down, months that are up, months that are down. I think projections for April is that potentially April could be above last year. When we start looking at how do we project TDA revenue, we look at all these things, the ups and the downs and the leveling of what we're seeing there. We also know a couple things that are going on. One is that the state and NC Visit is been recently charged with and given an appropriation of $9 million to really encourage visitors from the outside area, outside of the state. A lot of ads, a lot of things being put out there. So there's a lot of demand that's starting to be projected for the summer and the fall. And those demand pieces, as Director Brown can tell you, are based on bookings, what's being booked in June or July and August and September and October. And what we're seeing there is some pretty strong numbers. Not record-breaking, perhaps, we don't know, but they're strong numbers, which means people are going to be coming back to the area. So what we are overall projecting for the TDA is a flat budget. Last year, we projected 1.8. We're probably going to come in a little bit under the 1.8, but we're projecting, again, to stay flat at last year's budget, which is 1.8. So a very ho-hum budget so far. Not projecting or not asking for any property tax increases. Sales tax, pretty flat to where we are currently. TDA, we're keeping pretty flat to where we are. So far, so good. Questions?
I think, the thing that might change that a little bit is because, like our conference down there, is all we heard is just really pushing, come love the mountains, come love the places been hit. So, that might change our numbers some this summer.
And we would take that, right? Anything positive we'll take. So we're being conservative, and that's our goal. As we're talking about the TDA, one thing, as we're looking at going back to that slide that I had early on about diversification, looking at our property tax and our TDA and our sales tax and how we are different. We are different, for instance, if you go off the mountain to the city of Lenoir, their property tax makes up 71% of the budget. We're at 44.7%. So we're very fortunate. But again, we're a very tourist-driven economy here. That is our economic development. The TDA has grown substantially. And so each year I'd like to stand here and give you some things that I would like to show and give you some indications of what the TDA has been producing for us, because it's a huge part of our budget. 2.4 million is what you'll see in your budget. And that's why I stop here for a moment and say, wait a minute, you just said 1.8. 1.8 is our net number. Our gross number is 2.4 because the difference in that, $600,000, comes to the town. So the town, 1/3, as you've heard in the past, is $600,000. So 2.4 million minus 600,000 comes to the town. That's our money that we spend on what we call tourism infrastructure. If you go back just 5 years ago, that number was $346,000. We've almost doubled that number in the last 5 years. If you want to go back 10 years or 15 years, that number gets down to 100,000, $100 and some thousand. The current budget of the TDA and the current allotment that the town gets at $600,000 has been a tremendous asset to the town. I just listed a number of things that we are either currently paying for out of that 1/3 money or what we've done in the past. We've talked about projects in the past, new bathrooms, new playgrounds, the park project we're currently under, and the TDA has contributed significant monies to those. But here's what we actually use it for on a reoccurring basis. As people drive up and down 321 at a nice 35 miles an hour, and they see the plantings and the flowers and the grass that's on there.
Where's the chief?
Yeah. As they see the plantings and the flowers and the grass and the beauty that is 321, the TDA is paying for that. That is something that we deem as part of our tourism infrastructure. And it is. The beauty of this town, the landscaping, which is a part of here, the park attendance, the Christmas decorations, the street lights, the parking deck that we just paid off this past year at Brom, a number of things that we have that other towns don't have, we're able to have because of the TDA. So I just want to take a moment and stress that once again. As the tourism goes in this town, we go in this town. And that number continues to rise and continues to be a higher percentage. So as we are faced with making decisions with budgetary, impacts, as we're faced with making decisions and looking at providing services and additional things, the tourism piece of this is something that we always consider. We know our property tax individuals, we know our residents, of course, but as tourism goes, we go. And that was the point of wanting to stress and put forth what we actually do with the $600,000 from the tourism side of things. All right, any questions on the revenues? Only 80 more slides. So expenditures, in expenditures. This slide is something I like to put up because we all have a dollar bill probably, or maybe we don't anymore. Maybe that's a thing of the past. I still like to look at a dollar bill and how we divide a dollar. Any town, any county for the most part, our number one expense is going to be public safety. That's fire and police, and that makes up 30% of our budget. That is typical. That number is always going to be in the upper 20s or low to mid 30s in any town that has full service police and full service fire, because those are typically where your bigger numbers are. Then you get into our next biggest number, something called central government. That doesn't make any sense at all. Why is central government so expensive? It sounds like that's our salaries. It's not. We're at the admin piece, which is not even listed on here hardly. It's down towards the end. But our central government for this town are weird things, like it's our TDA expense. We collect all of the TDA revenue. So as the entities that perform short-term rentals, hotels, motels, etc., collect the TDA taxes, they then turn around and they submit them to the town, and we record those. And then as we finish up the month, we send over to the TDA their share, which is 2/3. But we have to record that revenue at a gross and the expense as a gross. Sales tax, same way. We get all the sales tax, and then we send a portion of it back to the county. That is the reason that number is big, because if you take sales tax and TDA, just the expense side, you're well over $3 million. So a little bit misleading. What I'd like to focus on really is what we typically think of here as our services. Our public safety, number one, 30%. Streets and sanitation, that's all of our public works folks that you see out, like last night at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, making sure that our town is continuing to be well maintained, and our streets and our stormwaters and our trash is being picked up. General is a combination of administration, finance, governing body, etc. And then we go into our park and rec side of things, which is, for this purposes, is concluded park and recreation and our academy, and then our landscaping and our planning and inspections. I will tell this, every year our planning and inspection director, Kevin Rothrock, asks if there's anything he can do to help cut the budget. And I say to him, Kevin, your budget is less than 3%. So there's nothing you can do that can help. So, but I appreciate the offer. So
You are on record stating that.
I want to publicly thank Kevin for always being the first department head looking to cut his budget. So, laser thin. All right, so when we look at expenditures, we have 4 areas that I'd like to talk about. Again, kind of high level view. Tonight's purpose isn't to go into all the details as much as you may think that I'm going into. I'm not. That'll be for the workshop. Tonight's purpose is to go into what we look at when we're looking at expenditures into 4 main areas: operating, capital, salaries, and debt service. Operating trends, and these are going to be trends as we're looking for. Our current operating spending. What is operating? It's everything that's not considered capital, salaries, or debt service. It's everything else. It's our utilities. It's the cost of doing business. It's a lot of different things, telephones and IT and software and landscaping pieces and things of that nature. Overall, our operating expenditures across the board are up $277,000. The majority of that comes from 2 areas. One is our sales tax expense. That's that tricky number that's not real. It is, but it's not, because if that number's up, that means we're giving more money back to the county, which means we're collecting more money. So that's a big number, but I would say it's money in and it's money out. So ignore it, but I put it on there because 277 looks like a big number. Over half of that is money in and money right back out. Big piece this year is that we are up on our legal fees. Our attorneys are very expensive. So we have to pay him to be here. So
You're gonna crash and burn, Shane.
So Joey's contract is extremely high. No, he's not, but we keep Joey busy. And so we do have an increase in legal fees. We have an increase in audit fees because of the hurricane and the single audit requirements coming within that. Unfortunately, one of the drawbacks for Ms. Brown and the work that she does is that as money is coming in, whether it's coming in from the state or FEMA or whomever it's coming from, more than likely there's going to be strings attached to that money. Ms. Pickett's on her head because she understands that from her day job. Part of that, though, is that we then have to be audited on those monies, which means our audit contract has gone up. You approved it tonight, so thank you for that. And then IT constantly is going up, the cost of doing business. The majority of that is cybersecurity. It is layers and layers and layers of things that we're doing to make sure that our town's protected and that our computers are up and running. This is where I pause for a moment to thank Mr. Steele, who's behind the camera right now operating, for all the work that he puts in, because I can't think of a time or a day that we've had issues or computers that have been down or problems working. It's a seamless process. It's a seamless process, but it does cost. Those are the primary factors driving the $277,000 increase. And again, in a few moments when we finish this, I'm going to hand you the budgets and you can go back and look at all the details that make up these numbers. Capital outlay. What we've tried to do over the past number of years, and you'll have a copy of it within your budget, is our fleet schedule, our outlay schedule. We are trying to project what is coming next year and the next year and the next year. We're going out 10, 15, 20 years with what we currently have, when we think we will replace it based on our historic knowledge, and then what we think the cost is. This year is no exception to that. What's allowed us to do, and what I'll put up here, is really trying to smooth out this process. We've had years in the past, and you see the big number up there. That was a catch-up year because we had some pent-up demand on the police side for COVID and not being able to obtain cars and et cetera. Outside of that 1 year, which again, I'm going to say is not a normal thing. It's a rare thing. We try to stay around $400,000 to $500,000 a year. And of course, that number is going to fluctuate a little bit as costs increase. But again, this is going to be what you look at when you flip open your budget and you go towards the back. There's going to be about 6 pages or 7 pages worth of fleet schedules, police cars, street trucks, backhoes, things of that nature. What we have in there this year is $415,554, which is just right on pace where we were last year. What does that include? Some new things and some odd things that won't come up again. Number one, it's the second piece of our finance software. Last year, you approved piece number 1. Ms. Brown's been working and Mr. Steele's been working very diligently getting our software process started. That's our new financial software, the conversion process, et cetera. We've got one more payment on that. That's a part of capital because that's an asset. That's our financial software. From an actual fleet or vehicle standpoint, we do not have as much as we have in the past. We do have 1 police vehicle. Why only 1? Because I'm sure you're asking, we typically do 2. Mr. Kirk and Chief Kirk and his officers have been on the other end of some pretty unfortunate bad luck this year, including some accidents that have taken place that were not their fault. And so we've been able to purchase another additional vehicle currently this year that we were planning on purchasing next year, simply because of the insurance proceeds that we've been able to receive. So you approved that last month, if you don't recall, during the consent agenda. So what we have in the current budget is 1 police vehicle with an upfit. And you'll see that as you look through the details. On the street side, a new chipper truck, dump truck, and snow plows. The unique thing, these are pretty typical things. And again, you'll see the longevity of what we try. Some of these vehicles are beyond 10 years old, 12 years old, 14 years old. Rust, et cetera, is a part of that. And as we get through the workshop, I'll be glad to go into details, same with Mr. Blackburn, on why the need is there for some of these vehicles. Cameras. We have started putting cameras in our fire trucks. We're going to start putting cameras in our fleet as well. Police cars already have them. These are ways for us to prove things, whether or not where they are, et cetera, GPS, but also with accidents and things of that nature. So cameras are going to be a new wave of what we're looking to put within any town vehicle. Those are reoccurring, those are uploading to the cloud, et cetera. And we get into more detail again during the workshop, but those cameras are included in that. On the landscape side, our 2 little mini trucks, that's the best way to put them. We're proposing to get rid of both and replace them with 1 new one. So 2 minis for 1 new mini. And then on the landscape side, replacing a golf cart with a gator is just more functional. And again, we can go into some of those details on why. All right, employee salaries and benefits. Again, not a lot here. We are not proposing any new full-time positions. So our 81 full-time positions are still 81. So we're not looking to add anything to the full-time list of employees. We are proposing a COLA 2.5%. Statewide average is a little bit north of that. It's about 2.9% across municipalities. 2.5% is typical for us. We usually go 2.5, 5, 7. It's a 2.5% increments within that. So we do have a 2.5% COLA currently included in the budget that you'll have in front of you in just a few moments. We've always paid out longevity. That is something we do around Christmas time, and that is, or Thanksgiving time, and that is based on years of service. We've done that for 20 plus years. We've included that as well. Two things that we don't really have a lot of control over, one being health insurance. A lot of talk across the state on health insurance, especially for those that were with the League of Municipalities, because those individuals now have been dropped, or they will be as of June 30th. We were not with the League of Municipalities on health insurance. We were on some others, which we'll come to in a few moments. On the health insurance, we've been with the state plan. Our biggest change was Blue Cross to Aetna. That's been a big transition. We are projecting 5% increases. The tricky part about that is that runs on a calendar year, not a fiscal year. So we will not have those numbers until we get into the fall. We also are going to be spending time this summer looking at alternative options, whether that's staying with the state or looking at other options, just given the fact that we have had some change within that. And we can get in that again during the workshop. Our retirement is the piece that we have truly no control over. So, state of North Carolina, local government, we are fortunate to have a state-ran pension plan. Each employee contributes 6%. That's not just a coincidence. It's a 6% employee piece that is contributed out of every payroll. So every time you get paid $1, you give 6 cents of that to the state of North Carolina pension plan. And when you retire, if you're able to retire with benefits, that's what's paying you your monthly allotment during retirement. One thing that we have to do on our end as the employer is that our number is based on a number of things, primarily based on our workforce, the age of our workforce, the number of retirees we have in the system. So every town and every county has a different number for this. It's truly based on what your needs are and what your projected needs are. We last year had roughly a 16% number. So employee P6, we're 16, that now is 21.7. Big jump up there. That's again a piece that we have no control over. Why is that? We have a number of employees that have retired in the last couple of years. We have a number of employees that are going to be retiring in a couple of years. That's the percentage that we have to contribute to the state for them to keep our plan afloat at the state level. Make sense? Yes, Charlie.
Shane, did you say that we're fully staffed?
We are fully staffed.
Very good.
We are, yes. We are fully staffed. We have a number of applications in a number of different areas that are waiting on positions to be open. So yes, we're fully staffed with individuals waiting in the wings, so to speak. Very fortunate for that. Here's some numbers of what that looks like from a trend standpoint. If you take all of our salaries and benefits, it makes up $7.49 million. Last year, $6.9 million. Biggest piece of that, 2.5%, or biggest piece of that, retirement health insurance, $346, and the COLA makes up $165,000 of what that number is. So again, any town, any county, your biggest expense is going to be your individuals, your personnel. That is your biggest and your most important asset. I think we all understand and agree with that. On the benefits side, we have proposed no changes to the benefits. We want to continue and always want to continue to provide medical and vision at a very low cost. Currently, that is either $25 or $50, depending on what health insurance plan they're picking. We pick up the rest. And the vision is within a handful of dollars, $8 to $10 per employee. Again, so low cost to the employees. We pick up the other piece of that. Our dental and life insurance continue to be provided at the employees with no cost. Again, the dental and the vision and our short-term disability have been offered under the League, North Carolina League of Municipalities, for a number of years. That is changing. We'll be changing to the Hill Group, which is offering us a very seamless transition at roughly the same cost. Again, so these are our continued benefits of what we're offering to the employees. So again, we're offering or making no suggestions to make any changes to these and what we've done in the past. We've always provided a 5% match on our 401k to our employees, which is a fantastic thing. A lot of our employees retire here with nothing more than the 401k. So again, very, very important benefit that we offer as well. Something that we started a number of years ago is 16 hours or 2 days a year for civic time, whether that's at your local church or school, or whether that's volunteering at Health and Hunger, et cetera. We started that a number of years ago, and that continues on, and we do have a lot of participation within that and a lot of good positive feedback. Something that's really taken off and opened up, 14 months now, is our Blowing Rock Academy. Without getting into a lot of details, I do have an update to provide of the academy, towards the end of this meeting. But those numbers now are 12 children, where we had started at 6. So we are seeing great success with the academy. Again, we're continuing the academy as not only a benefit, but also as a part of our overall budget with the cost and the revenue. And again, you'll see that once you receive the budget. Questions on salaries and benefits so far? All right, debt service. Something here that I went back and did a little bit different because I wanted to show a couple years ago versus where we are currently. Where we are currently is in the green, that's 2026. And what I'm showing here is our total general fund debt. So this isn't overall debt. We'll do water and sewer separately. This is our general fund debt, and these are our trends. If you go back 2 years ago, a little bit more than 11 million. Today, we're at 8.9 million. That is current. This is not projected debt, so we haven't approved projected debt yet, but 8.9 million. So we've decreased our overall general fund debt a little bit more than $2 million in the last couple years. And our projections as of right now, without adding anything, which we'll talk about, 7.4 next year, 6.4 the following year. 75% of our debt, of the 8.9 million, is general obligation debt, voter approved debt. The other 25 is installment loans, Buxton property, DOT property we purchased, and then our fleet, which rolls on and rolls off. How does that equate into what we pay from an operating annual standpoint? Our total debt service trends annually and what that looks like. We are currently 2026 projecting, and what you have in your budget or we'll have is 1.75 million. That's pretty even to where we were last year, a little bit down to where we were 2 years ago. That was expected. As we roll debt on and we roll debt off, especially with our fleet, that stays roughly the same. The two pieces that we talked about during the retreat that are coming up, and that's what you see in 2027, that's going to roll off: the Buxton property at $200,000 a year and our fire station at more than $250,000. That's why next year you see a drop of about $500,000 in debt service. But for the current budget that you have or will have in front of you, we're roughly the same, within $1,000 of what that looks like. So overall debt service, our trends continue to go downwards. 26, 27 is our big year. That's the Buxton property and our fire station number 1 coming off again, plus some installment debt. And then we put on here bonds, ? That's yet for discussion of what that may look like as we go into 2026. Not the current budget, but the following year budget. Questions on debt before I talk about fund balance?
Is there a rule of thumb regarding debt amount as to your budget?
It is different. So the LGC, Local Government Commission, puts out a rule of thumb for fund balance, which is the slide that I have up here, and they project, 1 month is 8%, and they want you to look at your peers, which our peers are typically in the 25 to 50% range, and it varies based on the size of each one of those towns and what that looks like. From a debt perspective, the only real guidance they give you is through the debt council at the state level. So as we are obtaining new debt, something that's unique to North Carolina, we can't simply go across the street and get a loan for $1 million to buy a piece of property. We can't go across the street and get a loan for $800,000 to buy 2 fire trucks. We have to go through the state, Local Government Commission, and Debt Council. You have to go through both of those entities, and essentially they come to one for those entities to approve the debt. So that's kind of your checkpoint at that point. And they look at things like where you are comparison to others, what you have in the way of projections and revenue. So there's not really a percentage, so to speak, and what that may look like. So it's different than fund balance. So I can't really answer that question other than say there is a threshold, and that threshold, that filter, is the state and what they see as being a healthy debt percentage. So for us overall, our general fund debt's about half of our general fund budget. So kind of with the fund balance. On the flip side, our fund balance as of June 30th, 2024, was at 46% of our overall budget. And again, that's our unassigned fund balance, or $6.4 million. Why I bring that up as a part of the budget is that versus doing a property tax increase this year, we're proposing utilizing some of the fund balance. In this budget, $194,000. We added 800,000 at the end of June of last year, and currently, again, as of June 30th, we were sitting somewhere around 46% or 6.4 million. So the budget that you'll have and you'll be looking through does not have a property tax increase. In order to make it balance, we're utilizing or asking to utilize $194,000 in fund balance.
We should bring that projected fund balance to what?
That would bring that projected fund balance down about 2%. And that's without knowing what we're going to bring in this year. This was based on last year's numbers, of course, and that's our best data that we have. Okay. All right, moving on from the general fund, water fund. Our water fund's different. So general fund is a different breed. Water fund is a business. It is ran like a business. We call it enterprise fund. We are going to propose increases to the water fund, and here's why. And our increases as of right now are projected at 7%. 7% equal about $4 a month or $8 on each building. We've had a number of things that we've been able to accomplish the last number of years. And I thank you for being willing to move forward with these projects. One of which that rolled on this past year is our water meters. So our water meters are now installed and they're fully operational. The debt service on that package is $156,000. That's for one reason why we have increases that are projected. Overall, we are looking at a pretty sizable project that has been approved and will be going to bid in the next 30 to 45 days, which is our USDA loan. That's a $4.6 million loan. Again, that is for full upgrades of our water plant, our wastewater plant, and a new lift station for the Mayview sewer folks. That alone is $240,000. The $240 is not included in the projected budget. The $156 is for the water meters. But the $240 allows us a known quantity of what we need to prepare for. So we are projecting the need for a 7% increase to make the water and sewer fund whole. We are not projecting utilizing any fund balance. We're not projecting using any savings. So we do have a balanced budget when we're taking these things into account. On top of that, operating costs, especially with chemicals and materials on the street side, continue to increase. And you'll see some of that within the budget as well. I put here the cost or the cost, and we don't really have options. We don't. And the unfortunate part on that is that we cannot utilize general fund or taxpayer money on the water fund. The water fund has to stand alone. It's almost as if it doesn't exist outside of the general fund because it doesn't. So our revenues are our revenues, and our only ways of capturing revenue from the water and sewer fund is through our rates that we charge. Capital spending trends here, a little bit different. We are looking to replace a backhoe, a truck, and our leak detection system. Now, I do want Mr. Blackburn to go into more detail at the workshop of what this is. We have the new meters in. We replaced a lot of lines. These are putting systematic data points throughout the system to let us know where our leaks are. We still have some issues, like any typical small town, where we are told by our water plant operators we have a leak. They know that because they can see the usage and it spikes or it changes within that. And then if we don't have phone calls, depending on the time of year, depending on the time of day, we go out and start looking. We find it. If you remember back just a few years ago in July of 2022, it took us a while to find that water leak. We do have a leak detection system that we're proposing here. Again, not a lot of detail. I want Mr. Blackburn to give you more detail of what that looks like. Debt trends on the water and sewer fund, very similar. Our numbers aren't as drastic, but 4.95 2 years ago, 4.2 last year, 4 million this year. That does include the meters. Why these numbers change and continue to go down is because the majority of this debt, 90% plus of this debt, is our general obligation bonds. As we pay on those, the debt continues to go down. This does not include the next year's USDA piece because that would roll on in the 27-28 year, not in 25-26. Our debt service trends here, you can see the add and the addition of our water meters going on. The 644 is $44,000 more than last year. I mentioned earlier $156,000 for the meters. The difference in that is we had some debt roll off. So we were projecting a pretty flat year last year and the year before. This past year, the year we're in currently and projecting is going to be up because we do have the full amount of debt rolling on. And then we do have a little bit of a decrease the following year and then the third year, 2018. Again, this does not include the USDA debt because we wouldn't include it until we actually roll it on. But we can talk about that again during the workshop. Questions so far, water and sewer fund?
Then we're not putting anything in reserve for water or sewer.
We're not projecting anything in reserves. That 7% increase allows us to balance the budget, pay for the debt without utilizing any fund balance. Does not allow for any monies to be put back into reserves.
Can you speak to how the AMI meters have saved on leaks and water loss, and how that shows up in the budget?
Absolutely. Without going into the detail here, one thing we will go into during the workshop is that our overall revenue projections have been going down, and that's because our usage has been going down. The new meters have done a tremendous job at instantly detecting most of the time where the leaks are and what leaks are taking place, especially on the meters and within the homes, et cetera. So the thing we talked about with the leak detection, that's out in the network. Those are detections within our system. The meters are the ones that are telling us what's happening within the home or within the commercial industry, et cetera, what's going on there. Those are the ones we talked about. They're uploading every hour, on the hour, so to speak, and they're telling us, hey, there's a problem here. We're then being notified, we're going out, shutting the meter off, notifying the homeowner, notifying the business that you have a leak. What that's done is cut down our usage, because prior to that, it could have been a day, a week, a month, or 2 months. It may have been when you picked up your bill at the end of the 2-month cycle and realized that your water bill was $5,000, that you had a massive leak. What we're doing now is catching those sooner. That's a very positive thing, not only for consumers, it's a very positive thing for our water usage and the water loss that we're having. The negative is our overall usage as a whole, our system continues to go down. We also have more efficient vanities, more efficient toilets, more efficient utilities that are being used there as well. But overall, over the course of the last few years, our water usage has systematically gone down each year. So one thing that's kind of going against us is that we have to battle against our usage going down with our rates going up. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay. Questions on the budget so far? If not, our next steps are, we do have, and we'll have available, I put here tomorrow because, or today, it is now going to be public. I'm going to hand you a copy of the budget in a few moments. That is the general statutes. As you get it, the public has access to it. We'll put a copy out here and we'll have a copy that will be presented online first thing in the morning for the public. That's why I put online and a copy at Town Hall first thing in the morning. Our budget workshop is scheduled for May the 27th, and our public hearing as of right now is scheduled for June the 10th, which is when you possibly could adopt the budget. Questions?
Shane,
Yes.
since you're going to put the budget online, have you thought about maybe putting your presentation online as well?
Certainly can.
Because that highlights, the main factors.
Certainly can. Absolutely. Any other questions on the budget?
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Shane.
you. Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks.
Okay. That was good, Shane. You were well within the 4-hour span.
Hey,
All righty. Well, official reports, comments. As mayor, I just want to say thank you to Tasha. I want to say thank you to Shane, all the department heads, Kevin for really putting the pencil to his budget, and Tracy Brown for making us so darn much money.
Happy to do it, Mayor. Happy to do it.
But I want to thank everybody and the citizens for being patient to work through this budget. And also, I do have a question. Police Officer Week, when is that supposed to be? Anybody know?
This week,
This
this
week.
week, yeah.
I think it's listed for Friday, Thursday. or
Yeah, Friday. Yeah, but it starts this Friday, just Friday, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's this Friday.
All right. All righty. That's it for me. Kat?
Let's see.
Thank you, Kat.
I would like to make a comment. Let me get my thoughts together. Okay. The end of 24 and the beginning of 25, excuse me, the town put out a survey, and we had over 325 respondents, I believe it was. And the downtown subcommittee was sort of in charge of the survey with the planning department. I don't know if that's been put on our website yet, but I would like to advocate for it to be put on the website. That's a lot of respondents, and I think that people are really curious and wanting to know what were the responses. And the other thing I wanted to mention about that survey was that 94% of the people who responded commented on the awnings downtown being dirty. And I think that that's a large number of people who have noticed and made a comment about it. And I would just like to bring that up as something that possibly we as a town council need to address. Okay.
Kat, that'd probably be something that I think planning and zoning would address, would it not be, Kevin? I mean, I don't know.
We could discuss it offline.
Okay, all right. Dave.
Yeah, so week before last, myself, Mr. Fox, and a couple of the town council members got to go to a conference called City Vision, which was put on by the North Carolina League of Municipalities, and it is a gathering of people, elected officials primarily, town managers, city managers. And it was the first time I have attended. And so you're in meetings for a couple of days, all day, and the response you get when you tell someone you're from Blowing Rock was just amazing. And it wasn't the same response I had back to a lot of other cities and municipalities, unfortunately. But what I'm saying is, looking in that mirror and coming back, I came back with a lot of pride being from this community. And what I also gathered from that was just how well our town is run and what a fortunate community we are. And I think that gets lost in the noise a lot of times. And that it was nice to step out of this envelope and go somewhere else and hear the trials and tribulations of other communities and what they're having to deal with that we don't have to deal with, and the lack of assets that they have that we have. And so I want to pat ourselves on the back for the good job that these elected leaders, past elected leaders, and the community has done for itself. We just had a cleanup day, and the people that turn out for that, I mean, show me another community that does that the way we do that. And so I think that we need to take a moment and reward ourselves with and thank ourselves and each other. So I just wanted to relay that observation that I had 10 days ago or so.
Thank you, Dave. Melissa.
I just want to say thank you for all the hard work, Shane and Tasha. I can relate. I know I'm in the middle of one myself, so I feel for you. But thank you for all your hard work. Also want to say thank you to the public works guys. I know they've had a couple of rough nights with the weather and long nights, so we have a great town staff. They work hard for all of us, and I appreciate that.
Doug.
Yeah, thanks, Tasha. I know it's a lot of work putting in a budget. I too echo what David had said. It was nice to have a good turnout from Bowen Rock this time. Felt really good to have a presence down there. The classes were very good this year. We tried to divide and conquer to where everybody went a different route to where we pretty much absorbed every class that they had down there, I think. So, thank y'all for all that. So.
Thank you, Doug. Pete?
Yesterday, Shane and I went to attend the Governor's Advisory Commission and listen to everything for 2.5 hours about what's going on in the state, all the repairs and stuff like that. I thought it was very educational, and I do have the agenda here, which I'm going to give to Hillary if she could make it part of the record, and if anybody's interested in looking at what was discussed, Shane, maybe you'll have some comments when you talk. Secondly, we have our Watauga Economic Development Commission meeting, which will be Thursday at 1 o'clock. That's going to be in the Commissioners' Conference Room, and certainly welcome anybody that wants to come and hear what's going on in the county.
That's in Boone. In Boone?
Yeah.
At the County Commissioner's Office?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Pete. Joey? You had your time, Shane.
You don't want to defend yourself about your expense?
I will address the council with my updates if the mayor doesn't want to hear the updates. First off, by mentioning the meeting yesterday, since Pete brought up the meeting, the governor has put together a task force called NC Grow, which is dealing with the impacts and the aftermath and the response effort towards Hurricane Helene. And so this NC Grow committee met yesterday at Appalachian State. They've met in a number of places across the western part of the state in the last few months. This time it was Boone's turn to host, and it was hosted at Appalachian State University. Number of individuals spoke towards different topics, from landslides and our geotechnical side of things and how the impacts, how the Hurricane Helene has had impacts on that. Also, North Carolina Visit, I mentioned earlier, and the $9 million allotment that has been given to NC Visit for tourism and for advertising. That individual, the director of that, was there as well speaking. So a number of great, very qualified individuals speaking towards the efforts towards everything from the landslides and the work that's going into the debris cleanup to the promotion and marketing of trying to get people back into West North Carolina. And of course, everything in between. Some of the stories, of course, continue to be just heartbreaking with the amount of need that's still there from individuals with needing assistance from homes to private bridges and roads, et cetera. So about 2.5 hours worth of information there. Very, very good information. Here within the town, Green Street and Maple Street, both are completed water and sewer. What is left is paving. Moretz Paving will be performing paving on Maple Street and Green Street. We're expecting that within the next 14 days. Once we know for sure when they are starting, we will make sure we notify the public through a number of channels, social media, website. I'll put out an email through our constant contact chain as well. We are expecting that within the next 14 days. That is including milling and repaving of Maple Street and Green Street. It was mentioned earlier during the parking conversation about Main Street. Again, Main Street's a separate project. That is through the DOT. That contract has been let through Moretz Paving. That is scheduled to be finished between now and Labor Day. That'll be night work. We, again, don't have an exact timing of that. That depends a lot on the parkway and some other different factors that are going into what happens and what work needs to be done between the time they finish that work and the time they start our work. So again, that's a fluid schedule. As soon as we know these paving schedules, we'll make sure we let everybody know. Maple Street and Green Street, separate contract. The town's handling that. Again, that's going to be performed in the next couple of weeks. FEMA update, Wonderland Trail work has been completed. Our Green Hill Woods work now has been completed outside of putting the asphalt pavement back, patchwork, and then Valley View. Valley View continues to be something that we are working with FEMA on. We met with FEMA this morning and discussed our scope for Valley View. The difficult part of Valley View is that FEMA originally looked at Valley View as a putback only, no improvements, which means no shoulder work. It's essentially putting back the dirt that was lost, putting back the materials that were lost, putting back the asphalt that was lost at a tune of about $100,000. We're projecting that number to be much, much higher than that. So what we're doing is working with McGill, our engineering services, and FEMA for them to come to an agreement prior to us bidding that work and starting that work. So we know that the work that's going to be done is going to be reimbursed. So we started way over here. We're now working our way back towards where we think we are. And again, we're having meetings with FEMA every week here at Town Hall to discuss the update, especially on this project right now. All other projects have been completed. Green Hill Woods, Wonderland Trail, et cetera. So the only project we have as of today to be completed is Valley View. And we're working very diligently in trying to get through the correspondence with FEMA and McGill to make sure everybody's on the same page. So once we start the work, we know we're getting reimbursed for the work, which is key. Sunset Drive crosswalk was completed back over spring break. I think it looks fantastic. I think you did a fantastic job picking out the brick. I think it looks wonderful and is a great asset. Memorial Park, and the traffic continues. Our traffic diversion process continues to be an okay thing. We will be adding some paint to the road hopefully soon. Our overall project is on schedule, so concrete's being poured. That's a pretty long process. Our playground equipment should be delivered within the next week or so, and then that's going to be installed at the end of May, 1st of June. And then that playground section will be opened back up towards the middle or end of June, along with the volleyball courts. And that fencing will go back towards the tennis courts, opening that front area, the playground fully, and the volleyball court fully as well. I mentioned this during the budget process, and it was mentioned at David's update with the league. Our child care center continues to be a success, not only here, but we're also receiving great notoriety across the state. It was discussed, I know, by several of you, if not all of you, during some of the meetings and some of the things at the league with regards to employee retention and recruitment. The mayor mentioned earlier, we're fully staffed. We have applications in hand. We may have been the only town that was at Greenville of the hundreds of towns that have a fully staffed repertoire here, or resume. Part of that's the child care center. Last Monday, I had a chance to go and speak to another task force the governor has put together, including Lieutenant Governor Senator Heiss and a number of individuals across the General Assembly, on our process of not only proposing and getting the academy approved, and then the process of opening the academy, but then the great success and the outcomes that we have seen since the academy had been open. Great success within that group, and I plan on probably speaking again at another group in the very near future, coming off of the success from that group. But again, that was done last Monday. That was a governor's child care task force that the governor has put together, including, again, Lieutenant Governor, locally here, Senator Heiss, a number of senators and House reps from across the state. Our first Art in the Park is this week, and we're looking towards having hopefully good weather for it and success with Robin and her staff as they go into their first Art in the Park. That concludes my updates. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Questions? Council, I'll have to say, my hat's off to Shane and Tasha and the rest of the crew with all the things that have taken place and how smoothly it's moving forward.
Thank you.
And thank you. I saw this when we went to Greenville, how well respected this guy is. And that's in lieu of pay. Hey, budget's looking good, guys. Thank you so much. Now, we will adjourn and go into closed session.
According to North Carolina General Statute 143-318, 11A5.
Very good. And we will take a 15-minute recess while we let our audience clear out.